Hi, Elysia from Will Shift Dust here, back with the important questions like Luke. Would you rather do the dive through 320 feet of water to turn a water pump back on, or go bungee jumping through the silo shaft on an automated winch system a la Sherlock's a couple weeks ago?
Well, since we were told in the feedback episode that would have split me in half had I actually done it, I think I've got to go with the scuba diving. But I have been thinking about that question since you sent me the notes a few hours ago, and yeah, I'm not crash hot on either, to be honest.
I do enjoy some bungee jumping. Although actually, if you do like the bungee jumping, with your head with your feet upwards, it really makes your head feel like it's going to explode. There's a lot of pressure on your head. So I always wanted to try. I've only done bungee jumping that way, but I always wanted to try it like feet first. And so that looks like a lot of fun with
Can
it.
you do
But
it
you need a not that winch system that's going to split you in half, like we were told.
Yeah.
But like a proper bungee.
Can you do it feet first? I've never seen anybody bungee feet first.
Yeah, well, I think they also call it. What is it? Because I did do something like that in Costa Rica. It's not called a Tarzan swing because you don't go all the way across; you go down. I forget what it's called. Anyway, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, head downwards, not so pleasant. Just pro tip. Although, okay, bungee jumping in the silo would be a disaster because you would just splat into the walls.
Yep, you just splat into the walls, or you catch the edge of a landing, or it's a nightmare.
No, it's not ideal. It's not ideal.
Yeah.
Extreme sports in the silo are running. Okay, well, we are back on the mics to discuss, of course, The Dive, episode 7 of season 2 of Silo on Apple TV Plus. Luke, before we get into our own thoughts on the episode, can you remind everyone of our spoiler policy?
So, Elysia has read all the books that go to comprise the series Silo. I haven't read any of them, but Elysia will be talking about stuff that has happened in the books, if it happened in season 1 or if it happened in the first 7 episodes of season 2.
Yes. So Luke's representing the non-readers and those of you out there who have not read the books and don't want to know what's in the books. So I will be respecting that. And we will do comparisons, but only if it aired. And obviously spoilers for every episode that's aired so far. But non-book readers, fear not, because they change a lot in this show. And there's like a whole bunch new characters, new plot lines, all this stuff I know nothing about. So most of the time I'm just as clueless as the non-readers. But if you do want to know what I do know from the books, if you do want to know how what we're seeing on screen relates to that and how that affects what's coming, then we have our book club spoiler cast. This week's topic is the Wool Dive, the book differences that left me baffled as to what's going to happen next season, plus all the other key book lore teased and revealed this episode, like that bunker tour. And Abby and I will have that discussion on the book club feed, and stick around at the end for more information on that. Luke, before we get into the episode at hand, I have to say now that we finally have Bernard's popped the question to Lucas, the other Luke. He's seen the legacy. I can finally check off 1.5 more of my predictions for the season 1 finale. So they are really drawing some plot lines out that I thought might happen in season 1. So in the season 1 finale, I made, I think there were 8 predictions about for that finale, and I talked about which ones did and didn't actually happen. And also, again, in the first mailbag of this season, I checked in on that. But there were still 2.5 predictions left, and now 1.5 I can now check off. So one of them was Lucas will wind up getting shoved into a secret room in IT by Bernard, who wants him to be his shadow, forced to study old books. And I said in parentheses that might not happen until season 2, but we should see it being set up. So it's happened. What did you think?
I gotta say, I'm feeling quite smug right now because I said last episode when you asked me what I thought the legacy was, I said it was some kind of HAL supercomputer, and lo and behold, it's
but the computer's not the legacy. The legacy is the library.
Well, it's both because the computer.
No, the computer's not the legacy. The computer is the computer.
Okay. Oh, well, now I don't feel so smug.
But I did think of you. I did think of you when the computer spoke this week. I was like, there's that HAL voice.
Yes, there's that HAL thing.
It's a twist on something in the book. Yeah.
I mean, I really like that. I love the library. You know, the room that Lucas is working in. That's really well designed.
Yeah, so that is so much cooler than the book version of the Legacy. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but yeah, spoiler cast. We dedicated a whole episode to this and the other books of the Silo system. But oh yeah, and so the other half prediction was that Lucas would be put in a room like the one we would see some guy stirring awake in Silo 17, and so now that's happened. So now we know Lucas Shadow reading the Legacy in the same bunker that Solo's
Well, in a different version of the same
in
bunker.
a different version of the same
Different
bunker.
version of
Yeah,
the same bunker.
yeah, in a copy of it. But that still leaves one prediction that I had left, and we're getting pieces of it, teases of it, but they're still playing coy with a major plot point. So I'll talk about that final prediction in this week's spoiler cast. It's not related to the main topic of the week, the dive, but we get a major hint in the direction of my final prediction in this week's episode. So um, also, by the way, Luke, when I was going through some old notes, I saw in the season 1, episode 8 breakdown, I took a note that you mentioned that Bernard needs a shadow who already knows all the secrets. And I pointed to Lucas. I was like, oh, I can't wait to tell Luke that
Yeah.
this is about, he was right, and it's about Lucas.
Now I'm feeling smug again. So I've been up, I've been down. You brought me back up, Alicia.
All right, shall we get into the episode?
Yeah, let's.
Your regularly scheduled breakdown will begin in 3, 2, 1.
All right, we're talking season 2, episode 7, The Dive. And I'd say it's pretty clear where this week's title comes from. But do you think there are any secondary meanings again? Because they've been doing that most weeks where it's a play
Well,
on words.
I also think it's probably a metaphor for the state of the relationship between
Oof.
Robert Sims and Bernard. That's taken
Oh.
a massive dive off a cliff.
Hmm.
This episode, and just generally that things are starting to slip out of Bernard's control in
Yeah.
Silo 18.
Yeah, I think honestly, everyone's relationships got a little worse this episode, except for Bill Ank and Sherlock's.
Yeah. By the way, everybody, you need to find somebody that looks at you the way Knox looks at Shirley this episode. Like
Oh.
Shane McRae, just big puppy eyes every time
Mm.
she's in the room.
I love the way that they flirt together. It's
Yeah.
yeah. Like, oh, I'm jealous and it's fun and yeah. So this episode aired on Thursday slash Friday, December 26th slash 27th, 2024. It was written by Catherine DiSavino, who's best known for Nancy Drew, the TV show, and The Outpost. And she's one of the producers this season on Silo. And it was directed by Michael Dinner, again, like most of the episodes. Luke, we've already talked about some things, but any overall thoughts on the episode you want to throw out at the top?
Yeah, like this deterioration of the relationship between Sims and Bernard, like it's got to come to a head soon.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody has got to make a move against somebody before too much more time passes,
Mm-hmm.
because they are really like that relationship is shattered beyond repair, and like if one of them doesn't do something, the other one will. So
Right.
I think there's a real sort of Game of Thrones, you either win or you die kind of
Right.
vibe to that relationship now.
Yeah. I texted you when I was watching it and I said that I was hiding under a blanket for that part. I was just gonna see what else did I say. Um oh yeah, I said, aha, I see what the title is for episode 7. Oh my god, the legacy is so much cooler in the show than the books. This episode is fantastic. The Pez dispenser is back, rolling laughing. I'm hiding under a blanket for this Simsnard confrontation.
Yeah, I think we got to retire Simsnard because they are not a partnership anymore. Like,
No, we say Bernard, Big Paws, Sims.
yeah,
Yeah. So who's worse then between them? Who's the end of the scale?
Gotta be Bernard. There's
Yeah.
not much in it, but it's gotta be Bernard.
Okay. No, that's fair. All right. Yeah, so those were my overall thoughts on the episode. My one complaint for Apple is apparently we've gotten too far ahead that we no longer get subtitles and AD.
Oh.
So there were some things I was like, is he saying the Vaults library? But I'll bring that up when it comes up. Yeah, my hearing's not perfect by a long shot. But yeah, we're going to talk through, as usual, one arc at a time. So we're going to start this week with everything going on in Silo 18 before switching over to Juliet and Solo for the titular dive. So that we'll be talking in events in a somewhat different order than they happen on TV, beginning with the legacy, sitting with the legacy. Just as I'd hoped, the episode opens with Bernard, Tim Robbins, giving Lucas Avinash a tour of the head of IT bunker. Bernard makes Lucas report his name and new status to the computer, which is verbally verified by a flat computer voice. Welcome, Lucas Kyle, he is told. We heard, by the way, when they were signing in, 6 peeps on the keypad to unlock the bunker. So that means it is a 6-digit code, which means those numbers we saw on the chalkboard in episode 4 probably were the the codes to try to figure out how to get it in.
Attempts at the code. Also, that's really cool because you hear the pips before,
Right.
it's just a black screen and you hear the pips. That's really cool.
Yeah, I like that too. That was a good transition. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
wondered for a minute. I was like, wait, is the screen,
Yeah,
not working? Is the
you
video
did
not?
the same thing I did. It's just what? Hey, what?
And then said,
Yeah.
oh no, there's
No.
yeah.
There's a picture.
And I noticed that Bernard's code ends in 39. I don't know if that's going to turn out to mean anything, but they did show us that.
Okay.
So yeah, there was talk of Hal. I said in the notes, satisfied.
Yeah.
Did you got your Hal moment? Do you have
Yeah,
any thoughts on this
definitely.
computer system?
Only that we now know that it is far more, like orders of magnitude, more advanced than anything else in the silo. I mean, it contains basically all of human knowledge, except that anything related to why the silo was created has seemingly been edited out. We do find out the interesting tidbit that the silo is 352 years old.
Yeah.
God was able to find out that much.
That is that's interesting. It is a longer timeline than with the books, which doesn't really mean anything, but it just makes me wonder, like, ooh, what are they? Why that? Because they've been so specific with the timelines, and mostly they've lined up with the book. So it's like, why are they changing that? So Lucas, he's pointed toward the living quarters. So indeed, that door that we saw in the corner that we talked about in the corner before, it's now open and you can see a bed and stuff inside. And he's told he'll be living here while he familiarizes himself with the legacy. And Bernard says the food is all right, the bed is comfortable. So I guess we're going to see soon where Solo's been getting his and Juliet's food from.
Yeah, and we know where Solo was sleeping because we've raised that question several times.
Right. Okay, so full disclosure, I knew there had to be a bedroom in there somewhere.
Yeah. Also, do you get the hint when Bernard is saying that to Lucas that he's sort of hinting, maybe you'd want to take a shower and put on a change of clothes.
I mean, I really hope next time we see Lucas, he's gotten a shower and at least some sleep because the brain doesn't work as well when you don't.
And also
sleep.
A change of clothes. You're covered in cold.
And he needs a shower. He needs a shower.
Yeah,
it's been days, and I need to know where's his mom. He was worried about her in season 1. Where is she now?
But this is the thing. I think Avi Nash does a really good job with Lucas this episode because on the one hand, he's intimidated by Bernard. On the other hand, he is the ultimate kid in the candy store. You have this guy whose defining characteristic is intellectual curiosity. And all of a sudden, he has so much more knowledge than he ever thought possible, literally at his fingertips. So, I mean, it's almost as though this is like Lucas's path to the dark side. The road to hell is going to be paved with good intentions. I fear
with
for
books.
Lucas, it's not going to be actually not good intentions. It's going to be paved with curiosity. He may be the cat. He may be the
Mm,
proverbial cat that gets killed.
mm.
Because he is happy as a pig in muck.
Right. Well, I would
This
be.
episode.
Yeah, I mean, describe the legacy to people.
So it's basically an iPad kind of device that you communicate with by talking to it, like an
Right.
Alexa. But it has the sum total of all human knowledge that made it into the silo.
But what
Uh,
about the setting?
it's like this vast library, and it's got like photos of stained glass windows, and it's got a massive planetarium showing the planets, the sun, and it's really like richly carpeted and
Mm.
decorated compared to the rest of the silo. It's all like richly wood paneled. It'd be a great office, actually. It'd be a fantastic office.
Yeah, and there's so many books. And there's like Ming vases in the back and just like random human artifacts and
Yeah,
statues and art
and
and yeah,
apparently, like this is a fraction of the number of books and
that are
object
on that
art
iPad
contained.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Tablet, as those of us who are non-Apple users say. Oh, I
sorry.
shouldn't say that on this podcast. um
Other pads are available.
other yeah, I'm an Android girl. Uh But yeah, it's way cooler than the book, I have to say, The Legacy. So in the book, The Legacy is basically like a bunch of encyclopedias and shelves of tins. So I thought, we still see in the bunker, there's those steppy things on the walls,
Yeah.
that it kind of looks like artwork, but there's definitely drawers in there. I could see them even more clearly in this, that there were drawers in there. I thought that was going to be full of tins of The Legacy, and then at some point, I started to realize I was like, oh, well, I think the legacy in this version is it's not just going to be encyclopedias. It's going to be like media, like the songs that Solo's been listening to, the books that Mary Meadow has, um, all those
Yeah.
things.
Wouldn't it?
But
Wouldn't
it's
it?
so much more than I expected. It's really cool.
It is. And wouldn't it be awesome, like, if you had I mean, I suppose you kind of do with your phone, but you had a a piece of technology that gave you instant access to every piece of music ever
Yeah.
recorded.
Well, I can just like it's just with Solo, you think so. Solo's been in. I really need to see his version of the library
Yeah.
now. I'm like, how was that? What does that look like? But basically, he spent however much time he's been in there. He's spent going down Wikipedia rabbit holes with his endless library at his fingertips. Like, oh, that just sounds perfect. Hmm. But yeah, so Lucas asks where all the pristine relics in this secret library came from, and Bernard says that they're technically not relics. They are the whole of human history, knowledge, and arts, as Luke said. I'm gonna call you Lucas now. He says everything he can see and more than Lucas could imagine is stored on the computer system, and he shows Lucas how to use a tablet to search the entirety of the library for the things he is looking for. Yeah, so one of the things where I wanted subtitles was he said something about like these physical books are but a fraction of, and I think he said the vaults library. That makes the most
Yeah, he
sense.
did.
Okay, thank you.
He did.
And I had to laugh with like the Ming vases and stuff in the background, and Meadows had a frisbee as her centerpiece in her apartment.
Yeah, well, I think there's a limit to what you could smuggle out. And actually, was that what Meadows was doing? Was she like bit by when she was Bernard Shadow? Was she bit by little bit smuggling stuff out?
Oh, I imagine that these were just given to her as a sort of like shut up and be judge kind of
Yeah.
thing as part of the deal. Yeah. Um, Bernard says when he first became Shadow himself, he searched for the answers to all the questions we all have. And as you mentioned, the silos built 352 years ago was the only thing that he found. And we talked about the timeline from the books in last week's spoiler cast. But yeah, my first response to this was Bernard used to search for answers. Like, did the reality of this job beat all the curiosity out of him?
Quite possibly.
All right, so Bernard tells Lucas that the only thing that matters is breaking Salvador Quinn's code, and he quizzes him. Why is this so important? It's like he and Mary kind of unlocked like their favorite new pet trick. They're like, look at him think. Look at him. You just give him, you pepper him with questions, and he thinks about them. But Lucas pieces together that Bernard must be worried that whatever Salvador Quinn went to such great lengths to conceal in this letter during the last rebellion must be worse, more dangerous than the rebellion itself. And we just recorded the feedback episode for episodes 4 and 5, and someone basically said this. So
Yeah,
on the money, yeah.
well done. They are the real life version of Lucas Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bernard needs to know what that hidden information is. Yeah, what do you think? I mean, any new thoughts on what the letter could be hiding?
No, not really.
It can't be about the green and the visors because Bernard clearly already knows all about that. Could it have something to do with the tunnel at the bottom?
Yes, it could. I think it may also be that Salvador Quinn might have found out more about why the silos were originally built and who
Hmm.
built them and what
Okay.
purpose they might serve.
Mm-hmm.
Going
Mm-hmm.
back to the theory about this all being a social experiment.
Right. So Bernard helps Lucas look up the library's information on secret codes and ciphers so that Lucas can continue his code breaking work. And then, when shit starts going down in the silo, aka what we're going to be talking about for most of the rest of the episode, Bernard leaves Lucas to it. We check in on Lucas later, and he's realizing that it might be a different type of cipher altogether. He barges into Bernard's office toward the end of the episode saying, "It's a book cipher. Each letter corresponds to a number, which corresponds to a specific word on a specific page of a specific book. They just need to figure out what book that is." There weren't any matches in the legacy because Quinn wanted his code to be solved, Lucas says, so he used a relic, a book out in the silo. It must be a book over 140 years old, since before the rebellion, and Bernard says he knew one person in the silo who had access to such relics, and her favorite book was The Wizard of Oz, which Bernard has held on to after her death, so they'll start there. That was kind of a sad moment again. Why am I feeling sad for him? He killed her.
Yeah. And also, I do wish TV shows would come up with a different kind of cipher than a book code. Everything seems to be a book code in every show you watch.
Mm.
If there is a code to be broken, it's a book code.
So my first thought was, okay, so first of all, I think it can't be the Georgia book because they said that well, not that it can't be the Georgia book, but they said they thought it was probably a book that Quinn owned, and we got a sort of chain of ownership of the Georgia Guide or a semblance
Yeah.
thereof because there were all those names signed in the beginning in the opening page of the Georgia Guide before Billings burned it. So it can't be that for that reason, I guess, because it's gone. The names are blocked. T, Amelia C, OBJ, Melody, Gloria, Anne, and George. None of those sound at all like Salvador Quinn. And was his daughter Anna though? Could his daughter be George's mom? No, that's too far apart. Anyway, sorry.
No. But more importantly, it has to be a book that Mary Meadows owns.
Why?
Because as
Oh,
far as we know, she is the only person that has ever broken
the code.
this
Right.
code. So it
Right.
has to be a book that she owned, which is why
Right.
starting with the Wizard of Oz
Yeah, that's a good
makes
place to start.
sense. Yeah,
But my first thought was that it would be the pact because that's something everyone has access to.
you're right. Because oh shit, yeah. Because Lucas's point is it couldn't be something in the legacy because
Right.
only two people would know about it. And if it
Mhm.
were the Wizard of Oz, only Salvador Quinn and the person that owned that book at any given moment would know about it. So yeah, it has to be something that everybody had access to, or at
So I
least
guess
most people do.
was the Wizard of Oz like all the stuff in Mary's apartment? Is that stuff that was already out in circulation? And if it didn't come from her, how did all that stuff get out into circulation?
Oh, so I've just got like massive galaxy brain here.
So he said one other thing that kind of confused me. He says that he thinks the page of whatever book they're looking for is 77 because 7 is the only number Quinn used in the portion of his message, not in code, and he used it twice. Fine, that all checks out. But I assumed from the book cipher that it was more than one page. I guess I'm not completely understanding how this cipher works because I thought it was like you have a series of numbers and the first is the page number and then the like word
The
number,
second is the
paragraph,
letter.
and
Yeah,
line, and yeah.
yeah,
But I don't know. Apparently, this is all on one page. Whatever.
yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
And it's 77. So watch out for that.
But yeah, no, I love the idea of it being the pact because then anybody could solve the riddle, theoretically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, so it was addressed to his wife, the letter, but was it really meant for a wider audience? I don't know. I don't know. And why did he need to write a letter? What happened to Salvador Quinn? None of this is in the book. That, like I said, that the IT head at that time was a guy named Mr. Wick, and yeah, this is all new, but I'm very excited about it.
Okay, so they haven't just changed the name of the character. This is
No,
entirely
this whole story's
okay.
new. Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
I don't know what's in the letter, but yeah. Okay, this is a good place to take our first pause. And when we come back, we are going to talk about what's going on in the down deep. See you on the other side.
Over the last 75 years, over 10,000 chemicals have been introduced to our food supply. Yet the EU only allows 300 food additives. But at Thrive Market, we bring our members the highest quality brands and restrict more than 1,000 ingredients found at conventional grocery stores, making the switch as easy with our Healthy Swaps scanner, which finds better versions of all your favorite pantry, snacking, and home essentials without the added junk, dyes, and fillers. Plus, it's all delivered straight to your door. So if you're looking to shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health, go to thrivemarket.com/podcast and you'll get 30% off your first order and a free gift. Over the last 75 years, over 10,000 chemicals have been introduced to our food supply. Yet the EU only allows 300 food additives. But at Thrive Market, we bring our members the highest quality brands and restrict more than 1,000 ingredients found at conventional grocery stores, making the switch as easy with our Healthy Swaps scanner, which finds better versions of all your favorite pantry, snacking, and home essentials without the added junk, dyes, and fillers. Plus, it's all delivered straight to your door. So if you're looking to shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health, go to thrivemarket.com/podcast and you'll get 30% off your first order and a free gift.
All right. So Knox, Shay McRae, meets with Mark, George Robinson, he of the steampunk wheelchair, and some other guy in a back alley in the down deep. And I was going to write down the other guy's name, but honestly, it doesn't matter.
No.
They give Knox a cylinder of what we will later learn is gunpowder, saying that should be enough. When Knox asks where he's keeping the rest of it, he only says it's somewhere safe. So I guess this must be the second secret thing that that Knox asked Mark for in episode 2.
Yeah, I guess.
I went down a mini rabbit hole of how gunpowder is made, just thinking about how they would make it in the silo. So apparently, what you need is salt pepper, which is another word for potassium nitrate, and that can be cultivated from urine, basically, but painstakingly, but it's possible. You need
Sorry,
something.
it's saltpeter, not salt.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Saltpeter. So yeah, they can obtain that. Something like charcoal. We haven't really seen charcoal, but and elemental sulfur, which is in some soils. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me going down nitpicking, going down a rabbit hole. But just wondering how they get gunpowder.
You can also extract some elements of gunpowder from urine as well. So
Right, that's what I was saying. Yeah, the
yeah,
saltpeter
yeah.
come from there. The potassium nitrate. Yeah. But yeah, it seems Mark doesn't trust Knox enough to tell him where the rest of the gunpowder is. And I can't say that I blame him on that.
No, I mean you could literally blow the silo to Kingdom Come.
Yeah, and I think he's worries that Knox is a little too off the cuff, a little too, yeah.
Yeah, and then Knox
Much of a loose cannon.
probably doesn't help his case by pretending to drop said
Nope.
canister of
Exactly.
gunpowder.
Exactly. He's like, yeah, I made the right decision. Ha ha ha. Very funny joke. When we all blow up. Super funny, Knox. Meanwhile, Shirley, Remy Milner, and Teddy Olatunji are in the cafeteria collecting whatever paper the citizens of the deep can spare. And when we next see them, they are with Martha Walker, Harriet Walter. They're setting off some sort of human-sized rocket to go up the open shaft of the silo. At the top, a parachute pops out, and the sides open as it spins, spewing out slips of that paper that rain down. The slips are made from the paper that they collected, but now they're cut into pieces, and on them is written a message. IT lies to us. Mechanical wants the truth. What happened to Juliet? How did Meadows really die? What is IT hiding? Look and see. So, by the way, the Trixie trailer, they showed Juliet Lives written on the paper instead of this whole long ass message.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's want to point out that the camera focused on a woman who was collecting a message, and that is, again, Raider Jean, played by Kairika Sinani. And she is the one who's Billing's former student who had to tattle when he showed up at Juliet's apartment during their search last season, but who also this season refused to say that she'd heard Juliet say she wanted to go outside when she was arrested in the cornfield. So they're keeping her in play, reminding us she's there and that she is reading this stuff and perhaps brewing some doubts. Yeah, she's definitely going to turn on Bernard and Judicial at some point, right? She's not a book character, I don't know, but
I would think so.
yeah. What do you think of the device? That was really cool.
That was really cool, and also I love the parachute that they put in it to retard it as well. And also there's a great bit where they sort of light the fuse, and it goes up into the rocket. And Teddy thinks it's fizzled out and starts to walk forward and Walker
and Martha's like,
just
no!
pushes him back.
Yeah. That would have been a time when Juliet would have punched him in the face. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was really cool. And then later when Bernard's like, we were attacked. And then you see the deputies looking at each other. They're like the spinny whirly thing with the pieces of paper. Oh, yeah. Ooh. But I think the scarier thing, though, is that it's the gunpowder, because that means they have gunpowder. And they're not supposed to have gunpowder.
We don't know how much
right
gunpowder they have.
Because, you can explode your little whirly paper delivery system, but also gunpowder can be used for a lot more dangerous things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bernard's there when this happens. He came running after he was paged when he was in the Legacy Library with Lucas, and that flat robo voice said, Mayor Holland, there's a Delta event in the central shaft. And first of all, I don't know what a Delta event is. That's not a thing from the books. It's a new show lingo. So my initial guess is something bad. Any thoughts?
something bad, or at least something very unexpected anyway.
Yeah, like, is it worse than, like, a beta event?
Yeah.
A gamma event is in between?
Yeah, but not as bad as an epsilon event, presumably.
I mean, where does the scale go to?
Exactly.
Does it make it to Omega, or are you, like, or is Epsilon the end?
I think Omega is probably somebody's attempting to pop the lid on the side.
I mean, because if it goes all the way to Omega, then the Delta is the fourth letter. It's D, basically. So that's not so bad. But what if it's 4 out of 5 levels?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I know that it's levels at all. This is just like me spitballing here. But yeah, Bernard is predictably frustrated with Amundsen, played by Christian Ochoa Lavernia. And Amundsen's living up to that, having that level of competency of someone who would hand you a stapler when you're looking for a hard drive. But at least he can identify the smell of gunpowder.
Seriously, Elysia, it was one mistake. Just let the stapler go. But
Does
also,
this plug into a computer?
But also, I feel like we could just cut the line. Bernard is frustrated with Amundsen, and we can just insert that in episode after episode after episode.
Amundsen did something dumb. No.
Yeah.
No, it's not actually. I mean, he's trying real hard. Actually, I should have more empathy for him, because he didn't really know what he was getting into. He just got a promotion at work, and now it's like really hard, and Bernard expects a lot and just scary, and Sims is getting in his face, and poor Amundsen.
Yeah.
But yeah, as Bernard is reading the message on the slips of paper, a blackout rolls up the silo from Mechanical. It becomes strikingly clear that one department still has electricity when the rest is cut off. And that department is, of course, IT. And the crowd murmurs in shocked speculation. Bernard runs into IT to shut off the lights. So yeah, Bernard again with his whole shtick of don't look at the screens, disconnect radio communications, turn off the lights, everyone hide your eyes and ears. Nothing's
Yeah.
happening.
I mean, we did see the rolling blackout in the trailer, but it's
Mhm.
very cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Very cool.
yeah. A concerned Sheriff Billings, Chinaza Uche, and Deputy Hank, Billy Postlethwaite, or as Luke likes to call them collectively, Billank, they descend to the control room just as the lights come back on to confront Knox and Shirley, who are obviously behind the blackout. So we've got Billank versus Sherlock's. And Sherlock says it was the only way to get the message out, get people on their side. Billings says the people of the silo will just think they're crazy or see them as the enemy for shutting off the power, though Sherlock points out that they turned it right back on.
I do
Hank,
like Hank's response to that, which is that's like saying you hit me, but it's like saying I hit you, but I'm not hitting you anymore.
yeah, there's like some asshole saying I hit you, but hey, look, I stopped. That's not how we make friends. Hank had a lot of good lines this
He
episode. I enjoyed
did.
Hank this episode. um, so yeah, your concern for the longevity of the couples in this show, does that extend to Billank?
No, because they're not a romantic couple. This this
Okay.
this
It's only
this
romance that has to die.
yeah, no. This show seems to have like a horror movie slasher aesthetic, which is if you are in any way romantically involved, one or both partners is dead.
Okay. So Billings says to Sherlock's, we are not your allies. We are the sheriff's department. But it seems like that attitude is evolving over the course of this episode. What do you think?
Yeah, like Billings is on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't reached the end of it by this episode, but he's a good bit further down the road.
Yeah. I am surprised, though, how often Hank is being the company man, like, I am the law, even though, like, they are cut off from. We see Bernard later with all the deputies at a meeting. They're not there. They're, like, out of it.
I think it might have been episode 6 where Hank talks about, putting his hand on the pact and swearing an oath with swearing his oath as a deputy with Holston.
Mm-hmm.
And because Hank is a friendly guy, because he is of the down deep.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a tendency for us to like discount that part of Hank's character, but that clearly
Right.
mean more to him than I think we thought it did.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he has been consistent in this characterization in the show, so, I
Yes.
can't complain about it. I think I just myself it's the same way, like, Shirley and Knox, the way they treat them is just, like, so casual. They're not actually afraid ever that they're going to arrest them for real or.
But you get the feeling that like, Knox and Hank probably, Knox and Hank went to school together. Their
Sure.
parents probably knew each other.
Sure.
Like, yeah, the idea that like that the idea of Knox seeing Hank as any kind of authority figure just it doesn't work.
Yeah, and Knox says, they do clap back at them right now. Knox says, do your job and find out who poisoned our food. And Shirley says, or does that seem like you're being too helpful to us? Like, So, up in IT, Bernard calls the message machine rocket an assault by rebels on the rest of the silo. Like, okay. And commends the deputies he's gathered, presumably everyone above 120, for keeping the peace. Without radio communication, it turns out, because Bernard has kept all radio comms offline since the sheriff started questioning things out loud. And Bernard says he believes that Billings has been taken hostage and is being forced to say things he doesn't believe. Do you think anyone who's listening buys this magnificent web of bullshit?
No, but I did think he had a good answer for why the power was on in IT.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that made sense. Like, obviously mechanical can direct where the power goes, so
Why would they be able to direct where the power goes? Because,
well,
I guess it depends. We haven't seen their circuit breakers. That's true.
yeah, so I mean, that part at least of it was plausible, but yeah, the rest of it, like you say, is just a web of bullshit that nobody's really buying.
Yeah. So first of all, I have to point out that we have in the crowd, we have two familiar faces. We have Deputy Karen's Angela Yo, who's we've seen. She's the other deputy who's most often named, and Sandy Chipo Chung, who was once Holston's and Juliet's assistant. She's in the crowd because we know she works on level 105 at the deputy station there, so that's above 120. And we saw her be turned away when she tried to go through the barricade to get back to her family at 135. So she's stuck above the barricade. So they're obviously setting something up for these two characters, right? Any predictions?
They might be the ones leading an insurrection within the sheriff's department in the
Hmm.
next couple of episodes.
Oh, you know what I just thought of? They were having, we'll talk about this later on, but they were having some discussion about who they could trust. You know, obviously they can't get a message. They couldn't get a message upstairs. We'll talk about that later. But maybe they'll say, oh, that's someone we could get a message to, Sandy.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Well, Sandy dares to ask Bernard about the notes that fell out of the sky that say IT lies, and she asks about the power that stayed on in IT. And this is where Bernard says that mechanical can control who does and doesn't get power, and they intentionally left the lights on for a few seconds to cast doubt on IT and Bernard himself. Poor victim Bernard. They're under attack, and he's declaring judicial law. Um, does Sandy need to watch out, or is she too low on his radar?
No, like, come on, you can't just black bag everybody that asks questions.
I mean, I would say Sims would like to try it, but that's not his job anymore.
That's not his job anymore.
um, hmm. So the power from the IT, I'm assuming this is the lines we saw coming in from elsewhere, or
Yes, and like, clearly in Silo 17, Solo's bunker has access to power
hmm
that's different from the rest of the silos. So yeah, I assume it's the power. It's those lines we saw when
on the
Lucas was
blueprints.
looking at the map of
Yeah,
the silo.
yeah. So Bernard, he later tells Amundsen that Amundsen is in charge of keeping the deputies in line, which I guess means Bernard will take direct control of the judicial squad. Do you think this is a lack of confidence in Amundsen or just Bernard being a control freak?
No, I took this as like more a further promotion for Amundsen. Like the sheriffs and the raiders are being merged. Like the sheriff's department is being overseen by the raiders.
Well, they already said that earlier when Sims was in charge, but now he told Amundsen he's specifically in charge of the sheriff, of the not the sheriffs, the deputies. So I thought that he was actually being given less control than Sims.
Okay,
Sims
well,
was in charge of the Raiders.
okay, we'll see.
All right. Well, judicial seclusion. And speaking of gagged and bagged, it turns out Billings was right about Carla McLean, played by Claire Perkins, being kept in judicial seclusion. At least it looks like she was gagged and bagged a bit more tenderly than Patrick was. We don't see a gag, we don't see a bag, just a blindfold. Apparently, Carla is refusing to speak to Amundsen. She wants to talk to Bernard, so Bernard has come, but she won't answer any questions about gunpowder and mechanical, though she says she knows exactly how much there is, until Bernard tells her the status of the other three she fled with. Those other three, Martha, Knox, and Shirley, of course made it back to the Down Deep, where they now roam freely, but Bernard doesn't want to tell her that, so he leaves her there alone to think some more. He tells Amundsen later that even if she did talk, she would likely be lying.
Yeah, and like, how would she know how much gunpowder has been produced?
Yeah, I was wondering about that, but I mean, I guess it has something to do with the fact she's head of supply. So I suppose I
Yeah,
maybe they're probably not making the gunpowder there. Is probably there's something they have stockpiled. Um,
yeah, she might have like some idea of like how much. Yeah,
well,
you're
I think
right. She might have an idea of like how many raw ingredients they have.
well, I think they might just have like finished gunpowder stockpiled in supply. And so he's like, how did that get out and how much? Because she should know how much absolute levels there are of gunpowder, right? As head of supply, she should know how much of
Yeah,
everything they have.
but beyond like the pistols that the raiders use, what else would you need the gunpowder?
I mean, I suppose that's what it's probably for the
Yeah,
guns. Yeah.
you wouldn't need. You wouldn't need that much of it.
I better safe than sorry, I suppose. But
Maybe.
I mean, the thing is that of course they just don't want the down deepers to have it.
Yeah, that's true.
And my other major question is, where is Danny? He's not okay. I didn't expect him to be in the same room as her, but we're on episode 7 now, and they keep mentioning this man's name, and they will not tell us what happened to him.
Okay, if we get to episode 10 and they still haven't seen Danny, it's like,
I'm going to scream.
yeah, Alicia's gonna hold out. She's gonna rage monster.
But meanwhile, Martha's going through old things done in her workshop and pulls out a picture of Carla, visibly upset. She throws it, breaking the glass. Poor Martha, poor Carla.
Yeah.
A less poor coupling, the family Sims. Robert Sims, common, makes a pancake for his son Anthony, Oscar Coleman, who appears to be praying, hands folded, but we'll find out in a moment that he's just clutching that Pez dispenser that keeps turning up. Camille, Alexandria Riley, joins them, reassuring her son that this mini blackout that has him spooked isn't like the big blackout from season 1 a few weeks ago to the characters. Rob says he told him the same thing, but it seems he went a step further. Camille notices that Anthony is clutching a relic, and she's not happy about it. But Rob told him that in the before times, people held on to that object when things were scary and it kept them safe. Camille tells Anthony he must be special and sends him to his room so that she can talk to her husband. Rob says the boy was scared shitless and the relic calmed him down. And Rob thinks that the power stunt scared the whole silo, but Camille says it's more like people are impressed. It was dramatic, and now they're asking questions about IT. Rob is finally getting to the point Camille wanted him to get to. He says Amundsen isn't up to the job as the head of judicial security, Rob's old job, and he needs to talk to Bernard. He needs to tell Bernard that he and Camille saved those raiders yesterday, and he thinks this prevented the Down Deepers from using that gunpowder to blow open the doors to the outside. Camille declines to fill her husband in on what she's been up to behind his back, with rescuing Knox and Shirley from the crowd and being confronted by Bernard about it. She says Bernard knows they stepped in to help the raiders during Knox and Shirley's ambush. That resulted in the barrier being moved up 10 levels, and Rob admits when asked that Bernard hasn't reached out to him. Camille says maybe the Down Deepers have a point and that she saw Bernard rush back inside to turn out the lights in IT during the blackout. She says he shouldn't go to Bernard, which would be a kindness to Bernard, but he should hold out for Bernard to come to him, to put himself in a relative position of power during the conversation. So, okay, what do you think Camille's goal is here? She's seems to be trying to sow distrust in her husband for IT, or she wants to encourage him to turn on Bernard. To what end? Is she just
Yeah.
trying to undermine anything Bernard might say to him about her?
Yeah, I think there is an element of trying to undermine anything Bernard might say about her. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't see what her end game is. Because like Sims is not gonna become Bernard's shadow. He's not gonna become head of IT. Like that is off the table. Um
Wait,
so and like she's got to be, she's smart enough to know that he's not going to get his old job back either. So this just seems to be antagonizing Bernard for no purpose. And
she
also
does
that
give us an explanation later in the episode that I think is sound.
uh, yes, it kind of is, except that except that the danger from Bernard is much closer at hand than the danger from the Down Deep.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, like you said, I'm not sure what Camille's goal is here.
Well, I was just posing the question, but I do think we'll get to what she says later, but I think that it does to in short, basically it's about playing all sides from her. She's like, whoever wins, I want the Sims to be paired with the
Yeah,
winning team.
yeah.
But yeah, obviously, at this point at least, the Down Deepers are not actually trying to blow open the doors to the outside, but Rob is like obsessed with this idea that
Yeah,
he
he's a
like
dog.
imagines
He's a dog with a bone.
everyone from the Down Deep wants to rush the door and blow open the silo. Um, why do you think that is that he's so fixated on that?
Well, but he's a securocrat. You know, his job is to keep the silo safe and in order, and like his worst case scenario is people trying to get outside. And yeah, he's been sort of socialized into from a very young age, because as we've discussed previously, his dad was a janitor as well. He's sort of been socialized into that. That's the worst thing that can happen.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's why I think that's why he's like a dog with a bone with this particular idea.
What do you think about the fact that Rob lied to his son about the pet dispenser? Is that like the same as Santa, or is that better or worse?
um, there's a. It's funny you should say that, because there's a story doing the rounds in the press here at the moment about a vicar that went into a school assembly in a primary school and started explaining to the kids that Santa isn't real. And now there's like this whole backlash of all the parents of this school like writing angry letters to the school and the diocese, and yeah.
What do you think that Sims would do if someone came and told his son? What if Bernard came and told Anthony that that's just a Pez dispenser? It's for dispensing candy, and your father's bullshitting you.
Oh yeah, no. I think there might be a bad act. There might be an unfortunate trip over the rail.
Were you happy to see the Pez dispenser back?
Yeah, the Pez dispenser. It's the Deus ex machina of the whole silo. It's like, yeah, when we get to the end of the show, I was just going to be like, everything is explained by the Pez dispenser. All roads lead to the Pez dispenser.
I mean, now that we've seen The Legacy, I really need to see a book or film or something that references Pez dispensers. Like, Graham Yost, bring it all together. Let us know how, like, it's some old commercial that's.
Yeah.
uh, Well, so Bernard later asks Amundsen about a warrant to search supply, which Amundsen is right. Bernard doesn't need a warrant since they're in, emergency powers mode. But Bernard wants to maintain at least the appearance of order. However, Amundsen reports Judge Sims won't sign off on it until he can talk to Bernard on his home turf, the judge's chambers. So Bernard goes to see Sims and remind him that his new job is to sign whatever Bernard tells him to sign and then go home. Sims says no. He says he's done Bernard's dirty work for a decade on the understanding that Bernard would make him his shadow. And Bernard says he once wanted to do just that, but he had reservations deep down because Rob lacks curiosity. So he never did it. And then he totally rubs in Sims' face that he got a new shadow and it's Lucas Kyle. Like, how much does Sims hate that upstart stargazer now?
I just, I love this entire scene because it's like a teenage breakup. It's got that
Hmm.
exact same energy. So
With
when
tinges of potential murder.
yeah, when like Sims going, Lucas Kyle,
Yeah.
like
Not him.
the
You
absolute,
left me for that guy?
yeah, the absolute incredulity in Sims's
He's supposed
voice.
to be in the mines.
Yeah, the absolute incredulity in Sims's voice is brilliant, and also like the way, because this is the angriest I think we've seen Bernard in the entire
Mm.
show. Like Bernard is really monumentally pissed off.
Mhm.
Um, and oh, also by the way, Elysia, you're a woman I have some affection for. I thought that was a come on, like Bernard.
Oh, that he's
That is
yeah, yeah.
not a way to describe the. That is not a way to describe Mary
Well,
Meadows.
okay. But granted, he's not gonna, he's definitely not gonna say nice things to Sims. But you know what I love of Tim Robbins' portrayal of Bernard is all these micro expressions. Whenever he said, for instance, when well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But Camille, she wanted Sims to pull Bernard to him, but I think I'm not sure she fully understands how dangerous the game they're playing is.
I think she does. I think she just has a very high tolerance for risk.
Yeah.
Um, which is odd because they keep going on about, like, they kept going on about last season and they keep going on about this season about how they need to protect the family and Anthony. But I think this is where the two Simses are fundamentally, like, misaligned in that
Mm,
their objective is the same. But I think Camille has a much higher tolerance for risk
that's a good way to put
than
it. Yeah.
Robert does.
Yeah. How cold was it when Bernard said, I signed you this position, this promotion, because I never wanted to see your face again? Like,
Yeah.
damn.
No, the one I thought was like, I did want to make you my shadow, but I never quite got round to it.
Yeah. He's being so cold and all the little faces he makes.
Yeah,
Uh, but at least Sims is smart enough to put together that Lucas sitting in Bernard's office means that that's who the new shadow is. So he's still smarter than Amundsen.
yeah.
And Sims,
It's not a high bar to clear, but he
no.
cleared it.
And Sims scoffs at Bernard allying himself with the likes of Lucas Kyle and Amundsen, and obviously he's not wrong about the latter. And he points out that meanwhile, Bernard's lost the sheriff and the deputies and judicial are likely to follow. And he says, I think we both know that Amundsen is useless, adding, you didn't know about the gunpowder because he doesn't even know what to look for. And Sims says that he and Camille saved those raiders yesterday, not Amundsen. And in return, Bernard tells him it's his fault that he had to kill Mary Meadows, and now it's for nothing because Rob's own wife helped those fugitives get back to safety. But Rob knew that, right? Considering how close they are. And that flicker of a smile when Bernard realizes he gets to tell Sims that his wife has been lying to him is just bone chilling.
Yep, he took a great deal of satisfaction in that.
Yeah. I think they're both right about the mean things they say about each other, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah,
So Rob is waiting for Camille in the dark when she gets home after this. She knows immediately what it's about, and she says she did it to make some friends down deep. And she didn't tell her husband because she didn't want to get in the way of him trying to make up with Bernard. She wanted to protect Rob so that he had plausible deniability when Bernard inevitably found out what she was up to. So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of buy this explanation, but do you less so?
I buy it, but I think it's a bit of a. Again, I don't think she's thought it all the way through. Because this is the thing. Even if the Down Deepers win, Bernard is not going to let the Simses be on the winning side. Like, the last thing Bernard will do is take them out, almost out of spite at this point.
Hmm.
So like I get what she's saying, but Bernard is a far more immediate danger to them.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't see a scenario where the Down Deepers win and the Simses aren't either collateral damage from that or they're not like the last thing Bernard takes revenge on.
But don't you think that Knox and Shirley will feel like they owe Camille something since she helped them escape?
Maybe, maybe. But like I say, I just don't think it will get to that point because Bernard is not going to let them win. Bernard is not going to let them be on the winning side.
Well, yeah. Bernard doesn't want that. We'll see what Bernard's capable of. Um, eh, I noticed with Sims, he says to his wife, "Don't you know how dangerous the rebels are?" And she's like, "And Bernard isn't." And she absolutely has 100% of points. I think Bernard is, when it comes down to it, he's more dangerous than the Down Deepers. But it seems like Rob has a lot of prejudices. So I have to wonder, often people who have these strong prejudices that seem based on nothing, like they're all dangerous and they're all trying to get to the door, when they actually spend time with these people in the real world, that tends to change minds because then people are like, oh, wow, they're just like normal humans like me with the same sorts
Yeah.
of worries and cares. Um, so I wonder if we might see that happen.
Also, small thing, but do you think Common shaves his head every day? Because like looking at that scene, like where he's sitting in the dark, and like the light is literally bouncing off the top of his head.
Yeah.
Like that guy's head is exceptionally smooth.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people who wear the rock the bald look, that they do probably shave anytime, well, for filming or if you're going out or whatever, like about as often as a woman shaves her legs.
Yeah, but like there is not a follicle on that guy's head.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that the hair people are taking care of that for him.
Also, there's a guy, there's a British footballer called David McGoldrick that Common is the spitting image of.
Oh
And like
yeah,
every time I see the two of them, it's like because they've got the same like combo of beard, bald head.
no hair. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just weird now. I can't. They're sort of merging together in my head.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. No, if it's a footballer, you can guarantee I won't know who they are.
Okay.
uh, but I feel for Common, and even though I like Camille better than, sorry, not for Common, for Rob, even though I like Camille better than Rob, I feel for him when he's absolutely right when he says to her, "We play both sides, but we don't play each other."
Yeah, that may be his role. I'm not sure it's Camille's.
Well, I liked that he called her out for trying to manipulate him at breakfast. So basically, she was just trying to keep him from talking to Bernard and finding out what she'd done. And I think we've seen a couple times this episode, he's not as dumb as people paint him to be.
Oh no. He's not a stupid guy. But he's like Bernard says, he lacks curiosity.
Mm-hmm. I think I know the answer to this from you, but do you think Camille means it? No more secrets?
No, of course no.
We'll see. Well, I mean, I think that this will be the most telling thing is now that she's told her husband no more secrets, will she keep that promise?
No.
Hmm.
Absolutely not.
Well, moving on to happier couples in the one happier couple, one, yeah. In the Down Deep deputy station, Bill Enck questioned known listeners about the food poisoning from the last episode. They get a guy named Martin, played by Jay Rinson, to squeal by threatening to out him as a listener to the public. And he says he doesn't know who the other listeners are, but he tells them about a place where the listeners get notes from their mysterious overlords in the scavenge room in a hollow handle of one of the collection bins. And there was a note that day with an order. Apparently, it was an order to kill Knox and Shirley. So first of all, I had to laugh. Hank, it's like he's chowing down on those hush puppies again and like slamming down the box to make a point. I love Hank and his hush puppies. Never change, Hank.
Yeah, I mean also like Billings has run out of
Fucks to
Billings
give.
has run out of F's to give at this
Yeah.
point. He is
He,
properly in his Dirty Harry
yeah. Full on
phase.
badass era. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at least somebody's having fun in the silo because they're flirting in the control room and they're arguing about who kissed whom when Shirley brings up the need for a backup plan. And that's when Bill Enck busts in to take them into custody for their own protection, he says. And now, of the pair of them, Shirley's the one who's thinking more responsibly, talking about backup plans. And Knox is just thinking about Shirley.
Yeah, is it just me or is Knox a bit more into this than Shirley is?
It seems like it. She's like, okay, let's talk serious things. He's like, let's talk about our kiss.
I like, the way Shane McCrane looks at Remy Miller this episode. It's like big, sad puppy eyes.
Yeah. I mean, I think she's into it too, but I think he's like really smitten. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Bless him.
So next, Hank goes to apply the pressure on Frances Saccharissa Claxton, who is spending time with her Uncle Patrick, Rick Gomez, as he recovers. And Hank says that Frances has shady contacts, so he wants her to use them to figure out who poisoned the food. And she tells him to fuck off, and he returns to Team Bill / Sherlock's empty-handed. And Billings, back on his super detective shit, says, let's start by checking who has access to the scavenge room, someone who could have left that note. Shirley wants to send a message back to those who would have them killed, like a message in the abstract way. And she and Knox prove there's no situation too dire to flirt fight through. And Martha walks in and totally calls them all it.
Yeah.
Martha wants to know about judicial seclusion, and Billings says it's super shady, but there's nothing they can do. McLean is in a fortress most people don't even know about. Martha wants to at least get a message to her, but they can't reach any of the porters or use the radios or computer messages. Martha says she won't lose her again by not doing enough, like 25 years ago, and she storms out. So, Luke, since you're the couple doomsayer on this pod, I have to ask. I'm going to make you literally kill your darlings. If you
Yeah.
can only keep one from each of these couples, what will it be? I've got 3 couples here. First is Shirley and Knox. You can only keep one. The other one's.
Oh, yeah, you sent me the notes a couple of hours
Mhm.
earlier on today, and I've been thinking about this. This is like Sophie's Choice. This is horrible. So I can only keep one of Shirley or Knox.
Yeah.
Gonna have to be Knox, I'm afraid. Like
Mm.
the more I see, particularly this episode, when we'll talk about it in a minute, the more I see of Knox, the more impressed I am by him as a leader, as a leader, as somebody you'd want to follow.
Mhm. Right. Okay. Next up, Martha and Carla.
Gotta be Martha. Gotta be Martha.
Yeah, no, I guess that one's an easier one. Sorry, Carla, we love you.
Yeah.
Billings and Hank. I know you said they're not a romantic couple, but I'm applying the couple rule here.
Oh, this is horrible. Oh, oh. I'm gonna go with Billings.
Okay. Sorry, Hank. I mean, I'm not playing this game just because these are all real book characters, and I feel like I can't responsibly speculate. So, but I enjoy your responses. So, Billenk / Sherlock's look through the names of people with access to the scavenge room, but it isn't getting them anywhere. But then Kathleen Billings, Caitlin Zaz, shows up because in addition to nurse, she's added junior detective to her side job resume, still with the baby strapped to her chest, of course. And she says she got lying vibes from Frances, so she followed her after Hank left because Kathleen was there in the background doing nursing stuff with Patrick. So Frances went to the cafeteria. Kathleen followed her, and she says things are getting out of hand there. So they all go, including Knox and Shirley, because Knox points out that the crowds have proven more likely to listen to him than Hank or likely Billings. I love this line, this exchange between Shirley and Knox, where Shirley's like, "I always thought that Lorelai was a listener," and he's like, "Lorelai's an asshole, not a listener."
Yeah.
So in the cafeteria, there's a mob gathered around the cafeteria lady who showed them the poisoned food last week, a woman named Maeve, played by Maria Teresa Creasley. And they all think she did the poisoning, and she holds the crowd at bay with a kitchen knife. Knox confirms that she's the one who told them about the poisoned food, but move over, Billings, because you're not the only detective boy wonder. Hank has it figured out. Maeve did do the poisoning. We find out it's because they have her mother upstairs as collateral, and they won't give her treatment for a condition unless Maeve does what they say. But she didn't want to hurt anyone, and so that's why she made sure they knew about the poisoning before anyone ate anything. She ruined the food stock as requested, but wanted to make sure no one would die from it in the short term at least. And she admits to planting the notes with the kill order, which she was told was intended more to divide people than to actually get them killed. And so Maeve knew she was in the wrong and about to get away with it. Why did she call Frances a crazy bitch? That's when the crowd started to turn on her again.
Yeah,
That's
no,
just so
I
dumb.
know. But also, I love Hank doing like a proper Columbo.
Hmm.
Just one more question, putting it
Right.
all together. Yeah, I mean, Hank. This is the thing. Like in season 1, Hank was like portrayed as a little bit hapless
Hmm.
and just kind of a bit of a dog's body. But
Mm.
in season 2, I love what they've done with his character. He's actually quite he's a good cop. He's a good, solid police detective. And there is something very Columbo about him. This kind of shambling, amiable guy, but he is actually taking it all in. He is working it all out.
Yeah. No, good point. Good point. And yeah, what do you think about? So everyone's actually pretty understanding in the Down Deep about Maeve and her betrayal because, as they say, mechanical doesn't turn on their own, and so they take the knife from her and say she'll get some shit from people and have to do some crap work for a while, but they won't kill her or send her to the mines or anything because she's one of them, and they know she'll be extra loyal because of it. What do you think about that response?
I mean that this is what I mean when I said a couple of minutes ago that the more I see of Knox, the more impressive he is as a leader, because it's not like the crowd writ large that are doing this. It's Knox that's saying this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Knox has a really good understanding of people, on what motivates people and how you get people to follow you. And I really like this speech. It's like,
Hmm.
because not only is this Knox as a leader showing a level of mercy that you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
expect, that you wouldn't get from Bernard or Sims.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also understanding how this community works. And he's not saying that she's gonna get away with it scot free. She's gonna be doing hard jobs
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and it's not gonna be pleasant for her. But it's understanding that, yeah, she was coerced into doing this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I like maybe in an ideal silo, it would be Mayor Knox.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, you see Billings really taking this in. So do you think he's thinking about signing up for Team Down Deep now?
possibly, but yeah, the camera does sort of linger on Billings for a while. So, like, clearly the director wants to get across the idea that Billings is listening to this very intently.
Right, exactly. One question though, Knox says, "We're going to make sure your mom's okay." How are they going to do that?
How are they going to do that?
They can't even get a message
And also, it
upstairs.
turned out that the Dr. Fallon, whoever,
Uh-huh.
was just randomly allowed to go up to the mids in the middle of this
Yeah.
crisis for no particular reason.
Maybe he did something else, but yeah, I don't know. I'm still Dr. Felon. Well, come on, they called him that. Like, or
Yeah,
Philon or whatever it's called.
yeah,
Um, I don't know. Still sus, still sus. Let's hear if
yeah.
his name's brought
It's
up again.
still shady as hell. That is.
Okay, one other question though. So this whole forgiving thing that they've done with one of their own, do you think that Mechanical would be willing to extend any of this mercy to outsiders as well?
That's a good question, and I don't. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think that's a measure of a society too, is how do you treat people from the out group as well?
But yeah, you know what I mean, though. Like, there's no way in a million years that Bernard or Sims would do that. It wouldn't
No,
enter their head.
it's not in the order.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Martha's not going to be told that she can't talk to the up top. While all this is going on, she's busy reconnecting the camera in her workshop, and she lets the watchers see her and then disconnects it again. And message received. Amundsen tells Bernard that Martha turned on her camera, and he tells him that they've been reviewing footage of McLean to see if they could find her handling gunpowder at any point. No luck there. But they notice that she and Martha seem to have something going, and it turns out they used to be married. So, okay, Amundsen, he got plus 10 points for him. He got one.
yeah. You know what? That was pretty good work, Amundsen.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, like, um, Bernard, Bernard says in the most sinister way ever, but they still mean something to each other.
Yeah.
It's like, could you be any more sinister
Yeah.
right now, Bernard?
Something tells me that Martha's not as safe as she was before, but then how are they going to get to her if
Yeah.
she's way down there? Yeah.
And then, well, no, this is the thing: is Martha going to turn the camera back on?
And then,
Well, and is Martha going to betray is Martha going to betray the Down Deep?
you mean turn cameras elsewhere back on?
No. Turn the camera back on in her, because this. I'm not. I'm unclear on this. Do the cameras have sound, or is it just pictures?
Oh, we haven't really seen Sound. You would think that they would, but yeah, we haven't seen
Yeah,
that yet. Hmm.
because I was
So
wondering if, like,
you think Martha would betray the Down Deep for
for
Carla?
Carla, maybe.
Oh wow. I don't know. I don't know if I could buy that from her. That would be very disappointing to me. Um, but I do notice that he says specifically, again, this is brought up twice this episode. They divorced 25 years ago. They keep bringing up this 25 years thing.
Yeah,
So and it's the same as when Meadows did her runaway thing. I'm wondering if they're linked and if there's a
yeah.
reveal coming the next 3 episodes.
Could Carla be some kind of relation of Meadows?
What would that matter?
I don't know, but
I don't think so because then Carla would be like, "Oh, we're going up to see my cousin or
yeah,
whatever."
yes, that's true. Yeah, yeah. Forget it. Yeah, no, that was just brain fart.
um, but Bernard, so they make a point of showing Bernard drinking again, but he immediately snaps to when Amundsen shows up. So I guess he metabolizes it well. I suppose this means A, that he drinks somewhat regularly, and B, that he is, as the late great Meadows put it, 7 feet tall.
Yeah, and also I like Tim Robbins has a thing. You can tell when Bernard has snapped back to duty because he does the button up on his collar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, when he's sort of off duty, he undoes the top button on that collar,
Yeah.
and then when he snaps back to it, he does the button back up
He
like a
even
little
took his
tick.
whole jacket off when he was hanging out with Meadows, so you
Yeah.
know that she was special. All right, any thoughts on Silo 18?
Um. Only that I don't think this situation between Bernard and the Simses can carry on much longer.
Mm,
Like it's got to come to a head pretty
yeah.
soon, I would think.
I mean, this season for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
They're setting up an explosion, probably a literal one, but we'll see. Because gunpowder's been brought up. Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to check in on Julia and Solo and their big dive. Just a moment. So Juliet's feeling much better now in Silo 17 after that course of antibiotics, but she is mad that Solo has stolen and hidden her suit to force her to help him with the pump problem. She promises she'll come back as soon as she helps her own people if he gives the suit back. She says that Solo has more time than they do, 10 months, he said himself. But he's worried about all the eventualities. What if she dies or doesn't come back or isn't allowed to come back or any other horribly specific thing he can think of? So he refuses to give her the suit until she helps him. Yeah, do we think Solo holding her hostage, which is like a very different setup from the books, it probably has as much to do with him not wanting to lose company as with the flooding thing,
Yes.
I think. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I just wanted to point out that she studies the wires connected to the circuit breaker, which just go up and disappear into the wall where it meets the ceiling. This doesn't really tell us anything new, but the camera work pointed it out, so I thought I would too. I guess this is saying about where the power comes into IT separately.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Juliet needs to dive down 8 full levels this time to reach the pump and connect a wire that Solo can connect to his mysterious power source in IT, but she needs to figure out how to manifest 300 feet of waterproof cable somehow, and of course breathe that far underwater too. Solo offers up the harmonium pedal, but she says she doesn't need the fucking harmonium pedal. She needs a power washer because of the pressure that exerts. Solo remains cheerful as they work, waterproofing the cable as requested, putting weights in her boots so that she can walk underwater when she gets to level 30. And he attaches a bell to his end of the escape line so that Juliet can alert him once she's plugged the wire into the pump so that he can turn the electricity to it on. And then she's to turn on the pump, and then he'll attach the escape line to the winch to reel her up. But he says, and this is important, he's got to reel her in slow so that she doesn't get the bends or she could die. And if she did get the bends, she would then need to go back underwater, but at least 20 feet. So, okay, we're going to talk more about the bends thing in just a minute when we talk about the dive itself. But was that the same winch and cable system that Shirley and Knox used in 18?
You look like it.
Because they weren't clear on how the porters got that. They're like, because they even pointed out, like, Knox is like, "Oh, you somehow got this pact approved winch system," and Calvin's like, "Yeah, no, but we don't want it because it takes our jobs, you know."
Yeah.
So
Well,
we
maybe
don't. Maybe something.
it's like the legacy. Maybe it's just every silo when people originally went into the silo. Maybe every silo was issued with one.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. So okay, so Juliet and Solo, they fight some more about her not wanting to do this thing and him yelling at her that she's the engineer, though she says he knows more about all this than she does and she's scared too. So why does she have to be the one to do it? He says he's the head of IT and it's his job to make Silo 17 his priority. And she yells at him that that's not true and his name isn't even Solo. And he finally pulls her heartstrings by begging, saying he's a fuck up, not like her, and if he does it, he'll die. She can help save the whole silo and keep him from ruining everything. And yeah, what did you? Were you feeling sorry for him in that? Were you? That was like really Steve
Yeah,
Zahn, by the way. Bravo.
but like, I did want Juliet to point out that this is a dead silo. You know why you're making Silo 17 your priority. What? There's nobody here.
Well, he is.
Well, he is, but like, why didn't Juliet just go? We'll build the next. We'll make another suit. You can
Yeah,
just come home with me.
yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why she doesn't propose that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, Solo tries to explain swimming to her, and then he explains goggles, and he gives her a pair he made for her, and she's curt but polite as she accepts them, and he asks her how long she's going to stay mad. She says, if the people in her silo die, well, it seems like she's going to say basically forever, but she
yeah,
changes the subject before saying that. How long do you think she's going to stay mad?
quite a long time. I mean, like you say, Solo is being quite polite about this, but he has basically kidnapped her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because he's hidden the suit, or like the half finished suit anyway.
Right.
Um, but on the other hand, like, he doesn't have a choice because to turn the pumps back on, like, whichever way you do it, it's going to require two people. You know, whoever
Right.
is doing the dive and whoever is monitoring, monitoring it from the surface, it's going to take two people.
Yeah. Yeah. So Solo lowers her into the water with her light and goggles and breathing tube and the power line, and she descends without a problem, standing on a little platform attached to the cable until she reaches level 30, and then makes it to the pump room without a problem, makes it to the pump without a problem and attaches the power cable. She rings the bell, Solo flips the switch up top, she flips the switch down bottom, and the pump is back on. And so Juliet heads back up. But when she pulls on the exit line to let Solo know she's ready to come up, her air hose just falls into the water and there's no air coming through anymore. She has no way to breathe. So she just follows the line and books it back up to the surface as quick as she can. None of that pausing and waiting that Solo told her she had to do. So yeah, we're going to talk about what happens when she gets out of the water in a minute, but about the dive itself. Thoughts?
I mean, this must have been tremendously complicated to film.
Hmm.
Because that is Rebecca Ferguson, and that is
Mhm.
Rebecca Ferguson in a large tank of water.
Right,
And we know from like behind the scenes footage that there were obviously other divers in
right.
that water
Spotters, yeah.
in case
And
anything
she's a
went wrong.
diver too, yeah.
Yeah. Um. It's a good job that pump is waterproof and
Mm.
that it works completely submerged in water.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's maybe made that way to, because when would you need to use it? When there's water, so
Yes, but I don't think it would work completely submerged in water.
well,
The
what would
like,
it be pumping if it wasn't covered with water?
mm,
You
yeah,
don't
I
it can't
guess.
pump yeah. So this whole dive is probably the most talked about action sequence from the book series. I do have to, though, be a little careful about how I talk about the book version here with, avoiding future spoilers, because there are a couple interrelated plot points that the show seems to be holding back on. So here's what I can tell you about the book version. It's the same length of dive, about 8 levels. And so the levels, we've been told, they're much bigger than like a normal level in a house in our world. They're about 40 feet tall. So 8 levels is about 350 feet. But yeah, since the flood isn't as high in the book as it is in the show, Juliet's diving in the book all the way down to mechanical. In here, yeah, it's only part way. So I'm not sure how deep that tank really was on set, but of course we talked about Rebecca's a diver. Rebecca Ferguson's a diver, and she had spotters underwater with her too. A spotter named Pete, apparently. Different in the book is that Solo isn't forcing her to do this. She wants to help him and try to make this silo more livable before she leaves. And I also have to point out that we talked about this in one of the book breakdowns, but someone on Reddit totally ripped into the physics of this sequence in the book. And basically, they were saying that the hose and Juliet would be under too much pressure, and she didn't resurface slowly enough to avoid decompression sickness. And it was this long, snippy review titled "Author Not Familiar with Boyle's Law." And how he responded to it on Reddit. And he said, author was a commercial scuba diver doing salvage work before Reddit even existed, has done wreck dives of depths over 150 feet, spent most of his life on boats with dive tanks and compressors plumbing the depths of the ocean all around. Author was a physics major and math minor who managed Boyle's Law just fine, but struggled in linear algebra. Author also learned a long time ago that most people just want an exciting story and not to pander to pedants, who are the vast minority of the reading population and don't really move any needles. Winky face. Boom.
Boom. Yeah, call the burn unit for that particular Reddit. But also, Hugh, if I can call you Hugh, don't feed the trolls.
Mm.
Like,
I
you're
think
never going to win.
this was during an AMA, I think. Or
Okay,
something,
fair
yeah.
enough.
But it seems like they did make some changes for the show. I mean, a lot of changes always, but here, for example, Solo explicitly warns Juliet about the bends. And the bends, for anyone who doesn't know, it's decompression sickness. And basically, it happens when you, as Solo said, you resurface too fast from diving. And I think it can happen also if you go down in altitude too quickly. But um, it's, the pressure changes as you change altitude. And so there are, when you are in the higher pressures of the greater depths, there's gases that dissolve in your muscles. And if you go up too quickly, you don't give the gases time to leak out. So they form bubbles of gas inside your muscles, resulting in a range of unpleasant symptoms that can range from just joint pain and rashes to headaches and vision problems to paralysis and death, as Solo said. So apparently, the older parlance was the bends referred to joint or skeletal pain, chokes for breathing problems, and staggers for neurological problems. But now they just it's type 1 or type 2. Type 1 is more physical, type 2 is more neurological, it seems like. But I don't know enough to say how bad Juliet's situation would be here. But it seems like 320 feet is really deep, and she was down there for a bit, and she went real, real fast. So that seems bad.
Yes.
Despite Solo's warning, she comes up so much faster than in the book. But I guess she really, she didn't have another
Yeah, because
way
she
to breathe.
couldn't hold her. She's got no oxygen, so she can
Right.
only. She's got to hold her breath.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so the rise, like I said in the book, was slower. I guess, TV show ain't got no time for that. It probably would have lasted like the whole episode, but here's an excerpt of part of the book version of Juliet's ascension. So first, I have to point out 3 differences in the book. One is that Juliet is wearing a cleaning suit with a helmet. She's basically converted a cleaning suit into a scuba suit. 2, the stairs in the silos are made out of metal. They're much smaller. And 3, the air hose hasn't fallen into the water, but it's stopped pumping air. It's still attached to, so basically the air hose is also her exit line. And it was attached to a compressor. And when she reemerges, she finds it kicked in on the landing above the water, and that's why it stopped pumping. So from the book, this is from Wool Part 5. She had her first spasm, like a hiccup, a violent and automatic gasp for air. She lost her grip on the line and felt her chest nearly burst from the effort of breathing. The temptation to shed her helmet and take a deep inhalation of water overpowered her. Something in her mind insisted she could breathe this stuff. Just give her a chance, it said. One lungful of the water, anything other than the toxins she had exhaled into her suit. A suit designed to keep such things out. Her throat spasmed again, and she started coughing in her helmet as she pulled her way into the stairwell. She rose gently up the stairwell, her body shivering from the cold and convulsing from the absence of breathable water. Forgetting all reason, all sense of where she was, she became singularly aware of the noxious fog hanging all around her head, trapped by that dome, killing her. She aimed the blade into the first latch on her collar and pressed hard. There was a click and a fine spray of cold water against her neck. A feeble bubble lurched out of her suit and tumbled up her visor. Groping for the other latch, she shoved the knife into it, and the helmet popped off, water flooding over her face, filling her suit, shocking her with the numbing cold and dragging her, sinking, back down to where she'd come from. The freezing cold jolted Juliet to her senses. She blinked her lids against the sting of the green water and saw the knife in her hands, the dome of her helmet spinning through the murk like a bubble heading in the wrong direction. She was slowly sinking after it, no air in her lungs, hundreds of feet of water pressing down. Bubbles of air leaked out of her collar and across her neck up through her hair. Juliet seized the hose and stopped her plummet, pulled upward, her throat screaming for an intake of air, of water, of anything. The urge to swallow was overpowering. She started to pull herself up when she saw, in the undersides of the steps, a shimmering flash of hope. Trapped bubbles, maybe from her descent. They moved like liquid solder in the hollow undersides of the spiral staircase. Juliet made a noise in her throat, a raw cry of desperation, of effort. She pawed through the water, fighting the sinking of the suit, and grasped the railings of the submerged stairway. Pulling herself up and kicking off the railing, she made it to the nearest shimmer of bubbles, grabbed the edge of the stairs, and pushed her mouth right up to the metal undersides of the step. She inhaled a desperate gasp of air and sucked in a lot of water in the process. She dove her head below the surface and coughed into the water, which brought the burn of fluids invading her nose. She nearly sucked in a lungful of water, felt her heart racing and ready to burst out of her chest, stuck her face back up against the wet, rusty underside of the step, and with her lips pursed and trembling, managed to take in a gentle sip of air. The tiny flashes of light in her vision subsided. She lowered her head and blew out, away from the step, watching the bubbles of her exhalation rise, and then pressed her face close for another taste. Air. She blinked away the underwater tears of effort, of frustration, of relief, peering up the twisted maze of metal steps, many of them moving like flexible mirrors where the trapped air was stirred by her mad gyrations. She saw a pathway like no other. She kicked off and took a few steps at a time, pulling herself hand over hand in the gaps between, drinking tiny bubbles of air out of several-inch hollow beneath each tread, praising the tight welds where the diamond plate steps had been joined many hundreds of years ago. The steps had been boxed in for strength to handle the traffic of a million impacts of boots, and now they held the gaseous overflow from her descent. Her lips brushed each one, tasting metal and rust, kissing her salvation. So yeah, I wondered how they were going to do that in the show because the steps are constructed differently, and so they just like didn't do that, which I
Yeah.
guess makes sense. But yeah, this is just the diving part in the book goes on so long, but I understand why they didn't do that in the show.
Yeah.
But was the dive for you was I know like the action isn't necessarily as exciting to us as the politicking, but of the action scenes that we've seen so far, where does the dive rank for you?
Yeah, it's got to be right up there. I didn't enjoy it as much as episode 1 and the building of the bridges.
Mm.
Um, so, and like I am starting to sort of get a bit blasé about the constant Silo 17, go over there, fix this, do that, complete this mission.
But now Juliet's gotten back out of the water. She's gone up too quickly. But when she crawls back up to the landing where they left from, Solo's not there. There's just there's a hatchet on the ground, but it's clean. But then there's blood splatters leading up the stairs. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there is at least a third person in the silo.
You think?
Well, we thought there might be all the way back in episode 1 because somebody else in episode 1 cut that rope.
Yeah.
So who this person or who these people are is unknown, but I hope Solo's all right.
Yeah, I mean that was it wasn't a lot of blood. It was someone who was like spurting blood, but not a lethal amount.
Maybe not, but they need seeing too, whatever that wound was.
Yeah. No, there was a sizable amount of blood. There's a very bad cut of some sort, but it wasn't the hatchet because the hatchet was clean, I thought, but I don't know, maybe I missed the blood on it.
Yeah.
Also, question, did she throw off the goggles that he gave her underwater when she was trying to come back up? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she did.
So it does mirror that bit in what I just read where she throws off her helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's going to be the big question. I hope that they open episode 8. Last time I hoped they opened with Lucas. Now I hope they open with where's Solo?
Actually, Silo is very good at not sort of getting cheap drama by prolonging,
right?
By overly prolonging cliffhangers. It's something they are actually quite good at is setting this stuff up and then resolving it relatively quickly.
Yeah. But now she's presumably going to have to deal with this whole situation as she deals with the bends.
Presumably, yes.
So the treatment options, I looked online, treatment options are recompression, oxygen, fluids, or, anti-inflammatory non-steroids like ibuprofen or naproxen. And yeah, you should lay down, keep warm, but not too warm. What Solo specifically said, and so I guess this is what's going to come into play, is the best treatment option is recompression. He said go back underwater, but at least 20 feet and hang out until she doesn't feel like she's dying anymore. But what's she going to do about oxygen without him to help?
That's true. And also, like, how quickly does I haven't looked this up, but how quickly does the bends take effect as well?
Yeah, I looked it up and it says it can kick in while you're ascending, or if you're ascending too quickly, or it can vary, but I would guess not too long.
Okay.
Yeah. Final thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, Sims and Bernard, it's all coming to a head. They better not do anything to Shroxy. And yeah, let's see what happens with this person or these people in Silo 17.
Okay. Yeah. I hope they open with what's going on with Solo. And I hope they tell me what happened to Danny because I'm not playing anymore. Okay. We're kids. Episode 7. Come on. Episode 8, they better tell us. All right. Well, we will be back here next Friday to talk about whether or not Danny showed up. That's the whole episode. I'm just kidding. But we'll be here every Friday breaking down each episode until the finale. And the next mailbag is going to be after the holidays. So after episode 8. But we do want to hear your show thoughts and theories. Please email them to woolshiftdustpodcast@gmail.com. That link again is in the show notes, as is Discord, where we have a dedicated forum with separate chats per episode and book spoiler discussion as well. And book spoilers are welcome in the feedback, but then book spoiler feedback goes in the spoiler cast episodes, of course. And this week's spoiler cast discussion again is The Wool Dive. What happened differently in the books? What is the show still hiding from us? And what do the changes mean for the rest of this season and beyond? Now, Supercast and Patreon subscribers will get this, plus breakdowns of all the Silo books and short stories, season 1 spoilery rewatch, extra interviews with Hugh Howey with full book spoilers, and weekly spoiler casts as we go. Plus, monthly or annual subscribers get additional seasonal episodes like the A Christmas Carol episode that was just recently released there, and additional Howey book breakdowns, Dune stuff coming up after Silo. And I would like to welcome new Silazins, Jackie S., Kinga, Julia OJ, Mary F., and Amy B., and new stories in Tim Yance, who not only gets all those things, but also access to the Canon Padawan timeline, which is the Star Wars Canon podcast timeline feed with different type of feed and extra episodes. And if you're interested in any of that stuff, then you can find those links in the show notes where you can explore. But there's also a new season pass option that allows you to just get the Silo episodes for a one-time fee, either season 1 in the books, season 2, or a double season pass. Explore all that in the show notes. But of course, you don't have to be a subscriber to enjoy this podcast. And if you enjoyed this listen, please tell a friend. We really appreciate also all the kind words that people leave for us in the reviews. It really helps the algorithm to promote our show more and helps people to find us and give us a listen. On the rest of the network, of course, the Dune Prophecy has just wrapped up on the Lorehounds feed. And there's lots of other interesting stuff happening there, like the Wicked One Shot, Skeleton Crew, Comics Versus episodes. Do check out also the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast, Properly Howard's A Few Good Films series, Radioactive Ramblings. Never Mind the Music is mixing psychology and music to give you fresh insights into both, and catch up on Severance on the Severance feed before season 2 starts in January. And Luke, it could be said you just put together an episode, right? Well, I mean, this will come out in a couple of weeks, but
Yeah.
you'll have your
So,
year end by then, right?
Yeah, so when you're listening to this, our year in review episode, or actually potentially episodes, should be up. So it could be said, with my co-hosts Simon Alvey and Will Cooling, we look at British politics, we look at international politics, we look at culture, and whatever else takes our collective fancy.
All right. Any final thoughts before we go?
Nope.
It's been a long back-to-back recording.
It has been a long session.
So thank you so much to my co-host Luke. I wouldn't want to ever do this without you. And thank you so much to our listeners. We really appreciate your ears and your thoughts and being part of this community. See you next Friday for episode 8. Sooner if you subscribe to Spoilercast. And until then, we'll just be following that trail of blood upstairs, hoping we don't get the bends.